Welcome to Mr. Brandt's 5th grade everyday math review. In this video, we are going over lesson 5.8, area models for fraction multiplication. In lesson 5.7, we found fractions of fractions. And in this one, we're going to be doing something similar, but it's area models. And I'd like to remind you that to find the area, it is area equals length times width. And so finding the fraction of a fraction is really actually multiplying. And to represent that today, we're going to use area models. And so I'm going to start by drawing a square here, but I'm going to use a number line as part of that. Okay, and for our first part, for this part, we're going to go 4 lines. Ooh, that wasn't very good. Let's make it better. And vertically, we're going to go 1 line. And I'm going to shade in these 3 sections here. So on your home link, this will already be shaded in. You will just get a portion that starts shaded in. And the first thing to do is to figure out how many sections there are on each side. So this would be considered the y-axis. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. So that means this section is going to represent fifths. And on your home link, you are asked to label each of those. So this would be 1/5. This would be 2/5. This one is 3/5. This one is 4/5. And then this top one is 1, or you could also write 5/5. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on this side, and this would be the x-axis. And as you can see, there's one section, 2 sections. So this is going to, oops, I wrote that backwards. So our denominator for this side is going to be 2. So this is going to represent 1/2, and then that will be 2 halves, or 1. Now, after you've labeled those, the next thing they're going to ask you is, they're going to ask you what the length of the shaded rectangle is. And for the length, they're going from left to right. So the length of this shaded rectangle is 1/2. So I'm going to write 1/2. And then they're going to ask you what the width of the shaded rectangle is. And the width is going to be from the bottom going up. In that case, it's 3/5. And they're going to have lines for that on your home link. And then at the very end, they're going to ask you for the number sentence. So the length was 1/2. Since this is area, it's going to be multiplication times the width, which was 3/5. And then they're going to ask you for the answer. And in this case, the answer is going to be the number of shaded portions, which is 3, out of the total number of sections. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 1/2 of 3/5 is the same as, or is equal to, 3/10. So I've got our second sample already drawn here for you. And let's start with the same thing. So the length of the shaded portion, so the length from left to right, there is 1, 2, 3 sections. Kind of got ahead of myself. We need to label each part first. So again, from left to right, there's 1 section, 2 sections, 3 sections. So this will be 1/3, 2/3, and then 3/3 or 1. And we're going to do the same thing going up this side here. There is 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So, oops, I thought I changed colors there. So it'll be 4 sections. So it's going to be fourths. So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and then 4/4 or 1. Now they're going to ask you for the length of the shaded portion. So the length is 2/3. We know area is a representation of multiplication, so it's going to be times. Then the width from the bottom to the top, the width of the shaded portion is 1 section, or in this case 1/4. So we have 2/3 times 1/4, and that equals, there are two sections shaded in out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sections. So 2/3 of 1/4 is 2/12. Finishing up with the practice problems. In our last video, we did some addition of decimals. Today, we're going to do some subtraction of decimals. And just like with the addition, we have to make sure that we're lining up our decimal points with subtraction. And the home link has that done for you, but I just want you to keep that in mind. So our decimals are lined up. Now we can go ahead and subtract. So 600 subtract 100 is 500. I can't take 9/10 away from 7/10. So I need to come over here to the ones place, and I'm going to use 1 whole from 6. And 1 whole is the same as 10/10. So by putting a 1 next to the 7, that's like adding 10/10 to 7/10. So that gives me 17/10. 17/10 subtract 9/10 is 8/10. I put in my decimal. 5 subtract 2 is 3. And we get an answer of 3 85/100. Okay, for our final problem for this video, we're going to do 5 9/10 subtract 4 14/100. And again, this is where it's important to line up the decimals, because the number of digits in each number aren't the same. The decimals need to be lined up. Now, in order to fall into a common trap, it's a good idea to go ahead and add that 0 like we've been talking about in previous videos. It doesn't change the value at all, but it'll help us make sure that we're doing our subtraction correctly. So I can't take 4 hundredths away from 0 hundredths. So I'm going to have to come to the tenths place, and I need to take 1 of the tenths and trade it for 10 hundredths. Okay? So putting the 1 here is just like putting 10 hundredths. 1/10 is 10 hundredths. And now I can do 10 hundredths subtract 4 hundredths is 6 hundredths. 8/10 subtract 1/10 is 7/10. Put in my decimal. 5 subtract 4 is 1. And I get an answer of 1 76/100. Hope this video was helpful. Make sure if you have questions that you get help, and hope that you're able to join me for lesson 5.9.